Hello friends, welcome back to GM Philosophy in the Morning. I'm the GM Philosopher, and today we're talking about creating NPCs that actually stick in player memory. I love this aspect of D&D, and this is one of my favorite topics to talk about, and I've got some points here that I haven't really discussed as much. So this is going to be some new stuff, so let's dive in right away. Point number one defining trait is enough, okay? You don't need a novel. You really just need a quick spark, a limp, a nervous laugh, a broken sword they will replace, and there's a mystery why. One unforgettable detail done consistently is worth more than pages of lore when it comes to NPCs. Think shorthand, think silhouette, think one-dimensional. Players won't remember the NPC's lineage or the complicated stuff in their backstory. They'll remember the pirate with the pet octopus named Gregor. That's what they'll remember because it's one-dimensional, it's easy to remember, and there's character built into it. So one defining trait is really enough. Give them one thing that's theirs, and then let the rest just kind of work its way out. And then when the players build upon that, that's when it becomes truly magical. Point number two is tie them to player emotion, okay? NPCs that matter emotionally last eternally. One way that I do this in my games is by when the NPCs come in, I will have them focus on the player characters, maybe one or two of them, with like a positive or a negative like type emotion, and then they will just keep projecting that. Like maybe they will act really rude to one of them, but they'll seem to buddy up to the other. This is just an example. Maybe they'll act a little jealous of one, or maybe they'll act really like awkwardly attracted to one, right? So what the point is that you want to tie them emotionally to the players with NPC emotions, let that affect how they act, and that will be, prime role-playing material for your party. If the players feel something because of that NPC, positive or painful, they won't forget it, and emotions make them real, okay? Let's move on to point three, but before we do, I want to just let you know that we have a GM Philosophy Discord. Links in the description. Come join us. Hang out with us. We're about 500 strong now, so a bunch of game masters talking about game things. It's awesome. So point number three is let them grow or decay. The static NPCs are just scenery. NPCs who change, though, become a mythic part of the adventure. I have a story about this. I one time ran an NPC who became very memorable, and they weren't really supposed to even be important. One time, the group was kind of in a faraway place. They were on this basically this icy road kind of in the wilderness, and they were fighting wolves, I think it was, and they were getting beat. And then I just actually had someone come along on the road, and what it was a knight on horseback, and they were very flamboyant with this beautiful like golden hair, and they had this beautiful armor and this magic sword. And I had no plans for this NPC. The only reason they came along was because I was like, ooh, the players are losing. What are the odds that help shows up? And I rolled really good. This was the help. This just came to mind. I don't even remember what their name was, but they rode up and they charged in, and they were noble. They were fighting. And then it turned out after they beat the wolves that they kind of befriended this knight. And the knight said, I'm going this way. How about you guys? And they were like, yeah. So they're like, we'll journey together for a little while. Long story short, this knight got roped into their dark adventure. What ended up happening was they found out, so there's a few details here. They found out the knight was this gay knight guy who was very highborn, very noble, and he was even starting to hit on one of the other players and like really becoming a part of the group. But then he got killed by a monster. He got in way over his head. They reincarnated him in a dwarf body. And when he got reincarnated, he was this hairy, like muscular, chunky dwarf. He was like the opposite of what he was before, the slender, beautiful, golden-haired beauty, right? Now he was this just chunky, backwoods-looking dwarf. And he went on this whole emotional arc where he hated himself, and he hated his body, and he hated his short stature and his chunky arms and his thick torso and his stubby legs, as he described it. And he began this whole depression arc of like hating himself. And then what happened was, he stayed pivotal part of the group. Now he was like tied to them. His only hope of getting back to his previous body was for this powerful group of adventurers to maybe get him to a place where they could resurrect him or find some other way to bring his original body back. And that's what he was hoping for. But in the meantime, he was stuck in this dreary depression. And what ended up happening was he became so depressed at one point that he was literally just riding in the wagon, crying, longing for the days when he was beautiful and fair again. But his arc was one where he had to learn kind of the power of friendship, and he learned that these players had actually become his friends, and he learned that he had to love himself. And that wasn't the spotlight. That was just little glimpses of things that the players saw whenever they interacted with him. And he became one of the most memorable NPCs and the most tragic NPCs of that story. For years later, after we played that campaign, people look back and they were like, oh my gosh, do you remember so-and-so? He would like lay in the wagon and cry because he hated his body. Like this is, so it became kind of like a joke, but he became a really emotional part of the campaign. So let your NPCs grow and decay alongside the players. Don't thrust them into the spotlight. Just have them there. And when the PCs care, there they are, and you show where their journey is. NPCs should evolve just like PCs. They're just not in the spotlight, but when the PCs are looking, you show them the evolution. This is going to bring us to point number 4. And before we jump into this, hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button. I would love for you to come back to watch more videos on the channel. Here, we're all about empowering game masters to run better games. So if that sounds like the mission for you, then smash that subscribe button and let's go. All right. Point number 4 is give them conflicted purpose. Memorable NPCs don't exist to serve the plot. They complicate it, right? Maybe they're an ally, but they're still complicated. Maybe they have a crush on someone who doesn't like them, and that makes it complicated, or they're jealous of someone else's good looks, or they're jealous of someone else's money, or they covet the magic weapon that so-and-so has because they just have this obsession with it. Like there should be complications with them. And this makes them so interesting. This really makes the NPCs stick in players' memories when they become a bit likable and problematic at the same time, right? The captain who honors the law, but questions the king and kind of puts the whole group in jeopardy. The cleric who doubts their god, and this constantly becomes a thing they complain about to one of the other religious class players. The villain who loves the same person the PCs do, right? So you have this villain, and villains are just another NPC. They're just usually larger scale and more in the story, more a primary character. But maybe you have a villain who loves the same character they do. So there's this weird overlap where they both have this shared goal of wanting to protect this person, but then they're mortal enemies, right? Conflict carves out depth, and depth invites memory. Let their loyalties pull them in 2 directions. This brings conflict directly into the party and makes it so beautiful. Now, let's go to point number 5. But before we dive into point number 5, which is arguably the most important point, I want to remind you to download my free GM Mastery Toolkit. If you have not yet downloaded this, it contains 10 of the most powerful Game Master tips I've learned in 20 plus years of gaming, all condensed down to a 10-minute read. Learn the most prime lessons I've learned through 20 years of gaming in a 10-minute read with these 10 powerful tips, and you can have that for free. Link is in the description. I wrote this to help further the goals of the channel, which is to empower game masters to run better games. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time talking today. I'm hopped up on the caffeine and we're rolling. Anyway, let's dive into point number 5. Let them interrupt the script. This has the potential to be too much. You don't want to overdo this, but it's one of my favorite things to do with NPCs. The best NPC moments are not planned. They collide with the party's plans when the NPC has what I call a one-dimensional emotional fit, okay? And let me give you an example of this. We one time running a game where there's a player who came into the party about 5 levels in, that joined the group, right? And there was this NPC there that for the most part had been a pretty neutral, chill NPC because they jived really well with everyone else. But she was a primary NPC. She was actually a healing cleric. But this other person who came into the group was a fighter, and they suddenly started leading the party in relatively aggressive directions, taking bigger risks, not being as conservative as the party had been being. And this was really awesome. This added to the story, but this NPC did not like it. And she went from being kind of a timid, didn't really say much, kind of helpful NPC, to being someone who literally at least once a session would freak out at this fighter's desire to want to take more aggressive moves as a party, right? Like take bigger risks, go for bigger payouts, get into bigger fights. And so she and him would get into these, these like shouting matches where she would, because in her mind, this player was basically running the group into too much danger. She liked their very conservative, safe approach they had been taking thus far. And she also, and this was kind of low key, and I rolled on this, she also was kind of attracted to this character. So she was kind of torn between like having a romantic attraction to him, but then also hating him because she was so frustrated because she felt like he kept endangering the group too much. So it was just this really interesting interplay that happened. It would flare up every time he would make plans to like lead the group into battle or something like that. And it was just, she would interrupt the script by having this kind of one. With her, it was almost two-dimensional because there was the attraction element and then the like fear of danger element, but one-dimensional really in the sense that this one situation would cause her to have like a meltdown. And I love doing this with NPCs because NPCs, I think they should be complex, but they should really be pretty simple in how we run them from an emotional standpoint. They should have relatively simple emotions. And why is this? This isn't because they have to be simple characters. It's because the player characters are the stars of the movie. NPCs are supporting roles. So the players, we want to show all of their complexity, but that takes a lot of screen time. We don't want to use up all that screen time on NPCs, so we're going to shorten screen time, minimize it, but make them as meaningful as possible by highlighting one dimension of their character. Thus, we let them interrupt the script with kind of a one-dimensional freak out. It's one of my favorite things to do. So there you have it. NPCs don't need stat blocks to be legends. They need hearts. They need friction. They need just enough to matter. And if you deploy these tips, your NPCs will become truly legendary and memorable at your table. Thank you so much for coming back for another episode of GM Philosophy in the Morning. I am here almost every day, furthering the mission of the channel to empower game masters to run better games. I will see you awesome people on the next one.